Thank you, Carl, for your continued leadership and advocacy of freedom and democracy throughout the world. I apologize to the panel for interrupting their important work, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Across the world, this institution is living up to the founding vision. This institution, the National Endowment for Democracy, this vision was set for it 3 decades ago by my idol, Ronald Reagan. The objective I propose, Reagan said, is quite simple to state: to foster the infrastructure of democracy, the system of a free press, unions, political parties, universities, which allows the people to choose their own way, to develop their own culture, to reconcile their differences through peaceful means. 1 year ago this week, in Iran, the desire for these democratic ideals gave birth to an indigenous political reform movement that is more promising and more consequential than anything the Middle East has seen in a generation. So it is fitting that the National Endowment for Democracy has chosen to present its annual Democracy Award to Iran's Green Movement. I can think of no group more deserving of this recognition, and I am humbled to join you in honoring them. 1 year ago, the conventional wisdom held that the prospect for political evolution in Iran was dim and distant. But as it often is, that conventional wisdom was utterly wrong. After the Iranian people were denied their right to a free and fair election, the world watched in awe as a sea of protesters, by some estimates as many as 3 million Iranians, swelled into streets all around the country. Ordinary Iranians realized that they could not remain neutral in the struggle for human rights in their country, and they became part of it. As a result, history was made before our very eyes. 1 year ago, democratic change in Iran looked rather improbable. Just 1 week later, it looked virtually inevitable. Unfortunately, we also watched the ensuing crackdown, which was as swift as it was brutal. Peaceful protesters were attacked in the streets by masked agents of the Iranian regime, then dragged away to the darkest corners of cruelty. Many of Iran's best and brightest were forced to flee in fear from the land they love, and to seek asylum in places like Iraq and Turkey, where they remain today as refugees. We read the desperate pleas of terrorized Iranians as they shouted for help through whatever cracks they could make in Iran's government-censored internet. And then, on June 20th, the entire world watched as a young woman named Neda bled to death in the streets of Tehran. And on that day, my friends, I believe we witnessed the beginning of the end of this offensive government in Iran. The past year's events have demonstrated the true character of Iran's people. Proud, talented, the stewards of a great culture, eager to engage with the world, and relentless in their quest for justice. A nation that should be a natural ally of the United States. The past year's events have also highlighted the true character of Iran's regime. A violent and militarized tyranny, self-serving and unconcerned for the welfare of Iran's people, with no shred of legitimacy left to justify its rule. We cannot separate the behavior of Iran's government from its character. After all, is it any wonder that a regime that has no regard whatsoever for the rights, the dignity, the very lives of its own people would also show the same blatant disregard for its own international agreements, for the sovereignty and security of its neighbors, and for the responsibilities of all civilized nations? Is it any wonder that this is the same regime that spends its people's precious resources not on roads or schools or hospitals or jobs that benefit all Iranians, but on funding violent groups of foreign extremists who murder the innocent? Is it any wonder that this Iranian regime has been and will always be uncompromising in its pursuit of a nuclear weapons capability, not just because it would be a source of power in the world, but perhaps more importantly, because it would be a source of safety and survival for its corrupt, unjust system at home. My friends, I believe that when we consider the many threats and crimes of Iran's government, we are led to one inescapable conclusion. It is the character of this Iranian regime, not just its behavior, that is the deeper threat to peace and freedom in our world and in Iran. Furthermore, I believe that will only be a change in the Iranian regime itself, a peaceful change, chosen by and led by the people of Iran, that could finally produce the changes we seek in Iran's policies. Even now, though we hear it said again that Iran's democratic opposition has been beaten into submission, and I would not deny that a regime like this one, which knows no limits to its ruthlessness, will achieve many of its goals for now. But when Iran's rulers are too afraid of their own people to tolerate even routine public demonstrations on regime holidays, as they recently have been, that is not a government that is succeeding. It is the action of criminals who understand that their morally bankrupt regime is now on the wrong side of Iranian history.